Welcome to a special episode of Talking Stories with Raquel Russell, your home for Talking Stories with Raquel Russell. Welcome to a special episode of Talking Stories with Raquel Russell, your home for chats about stories that impact lives and inspire change. I'm your host, Raquel Russell. Make sure to grab your favorite drink, adjust your volume, and stay tuned. So glad to have you here. Welcome to this special episode of Talking Stories with Raquel Russell. So thanks for returning. If you listened to Series 2, we wrapped that in early 2021. Series 3 is coming later this summer, but I just wanted to say thank you. This conversation is happening a little bit early. You're getting a special episode that's not a part of a series, perchance, but I was really excited about this conversation. I just wanted to make sure that we got it out there. I got to speak with business owner and my cousin, Joshua Edwards. We touched on a lot of different topics. We talked about legacy. We talked about life in the marketing industry, especially someone entering in your early, mid, late 20s. And then he also got really deep and personal and spoke especially to his experience as a devout Christian and shared some things, some vulnerable things that I didn't know about him before, and was really just amazed to be trusted to have such a important conversation about his life and his journey. But before we get into the episode, again, I just want to say thank you for tuning in. If you like the show, if you like this episode, make sure to subscribe on Apple Podcasts, on Spotify, also on YouTube. You can go on YouTube and watch these video podcasts where you get to see our fun and dynamic facial expressions. But thank you again for joining, and get ready for Series 3. We're going deep on a topic that I've been playing around with for a minute, and I'm really, hoping that we get a lot out of it. Life after church hurt and what that looks like for different people, different strokes, different folks. So stay tuned for that coming later this summer. But let's get back to the conversation with Joshua Edwards. If you're 20-something, 30-something, 40-something, 60-something, if you are an inspiring entrepreneur, if you're a devout person of faith, devout Christian, this is definitely the conversation for you. And he tells his story in his own way and his own convictions, and it's beautiful to see. So I'm done talking. Without further ado, let's get to Talking Stories with Joshua Edwards. Joshua, thank you for being here.
Raquel, it's an absolute pleasure to be here. I'm really looking forward to this. It's probably going to be a huge highlight of my day, to be honest. So I'm
Okay.
really looking forward to it.
I love that. And you know what?
Let's
It's been a minute
go.
since we caught up. Let's go. So as I mentioned earlier, Josh is my cousin. He's the second in this line of Russell cousins. His last name is Edwards, but we grew up together, spending time, at the farm, our grandparents' farm, seeing each other for, family get-togethers. And I feel like now we've kind of entered this new threshold of knowing each other as adults and not necessarily just, hanging out in the summer or whatever. And I'm really glad to know you and see like your growth. Josh, you're a father of two now. You're married to a beautiful woman, Charlotte. You have just really stepped out, and that's something that I really admire about you. But even as I'm speaking, I want to give you a chance to just say in your own words, who is Joshua Edwards?
Wow. So first of all, thanks for the intro. Appreciate that. I'm a guy that loves people. At my core, I love humans, and I'm in constant pursuit of a relationship with the Father. Don't always get it right. Certainly, always, at some degree, I fall short, and but I'm still pursuing. So that's where my heart is, and in every interaction that I have, that's kind of the foundation. So, owner owner of a business, blessed to have a team of people that are just wonderful, that work with us. We do have a digital agency, and with a husband, father. I love my boys. They're just incredible to watch grow up. They love each other, even though they're still getting to know each other because it's all fresh and new. But yeah, I love minimalism, and I love traveling. It's kind of it's a little weird. I haven't gotten on a plane in a little while.
I was gonna
It's a
say.
little weird for me, but hopefully by the end of this year, we'll be able to take off again. So
Absolutely.
hope that scared some people that are afraid of planes.
Well, you know what? Let's actually break into that a little bit. I have some more questions, but first, like, as a business owner, it's online sales and marketing is the name of your company. Yeah. Do you want to share a little bit about that company?
Yeah. I had to make that change because the founder of the company, it's gone through three owners. I'm the third, and the original owner, his name was Stephen Osmond. So he actually just took the OSM from his last name and turned it into that. But it was always something that was like kind of annoying. Like, okay, like this has to mean something now. Like
Right.
it can't just mean that. So it just kind of through discovery and through brainstorming with some people, like it kind of just came to us and it was like, oh yeah, online sales and marketing, like that's literally what we do, kind of. So it totally made sense. And we've been able to kind of build onto the business
Hmm.
over time. This is my third year of ownership. We're a small team, 9, 10 of us in total, and we do everything from digital marketing, website design, brand photography, branding, automated email nurturing campaigns, hosting, paid media, you name it, we do it. So
Come
it
through.
one stop shop. And yeah, it's been a blessing. And I always take a kind of a note from a guy that I look up to in business. He always says, it's God's business, it's not his, he just stewards it. So that's kind
Mm,
of the approach I'm taking, and certainly something I had to learn the hard way this time last year, when I probably experienced the most anxiety and stress I've ever experienced in business, and just having to surrender those things and realizing, it's not my business, it's God's business. He's had this long before I came into the picture, and he'll have it long after I'm out of the picture. So it was a really
that
good
is
perspective and thing to learn.
that is so powerful. Honestly, just the idea of surrendering that. And big ups to you. And honestly, let me just take some space to say congratulations on, you said 3 years of being the owner.
3 years this year.
Like, come on. That's amazing. 3 years. That's honestly, the time goes quick because I remember when you first acquired this, and like you were, if I remember correctly, you had been working at this company and then you moved into the business ownership, right?
Yeah, that's a good thing to note, Raquel. I've been there 6 years total now, and I remember having a conversation with the previous owner, like before I even started working there, and I said, when are you, what's your end game?
Yeah.
And he said, I'm looking to take a step out like 5 to 10 years from now. And he asked me the same question. I said, I'm looking to take a step in. And then 4 years later, I got the ask about, hey, you want to take over? And we kind of made it happen from there.
That man, that's beautiful, and I'm so glad to see you continuing to grow in this role and providing opportunities for other people. It just honestly, it's very motivating and inspiring for myself, and I know many others, and I'm sure folks that work with you. There's one thing I wanted to come back to. You had said, even in the work that you're doing here, and your yourself as a person, like being in pursuit. Would you say that is your mission in life? Like, how would you sum up your mission in life?
Yeah, my mission in life is to 1,000% just into a deeper relationship with the Lord. I mean, it's funny. Like I had this conversation with somebody. It's like, at the end of the day, it really is every person for themselves. Like I can't force anybody into a relationship with Him. Nobody can force me into a deeper relationship with Him. I have to want that. I have to
Right.
pursue that for myself. So that's something that I struggle through every day. And I used to look at the word struggle negatively, but
Hmm.
somebody said something that really stuck out to me. They said to struggle with something is actually good, because it means you're either you're going towards a common goal, or you're resisting something. Whereas giving in to something, that you shouldn't be doing or whatever, is actually what you shouldn't be doing. That means you've given
Right.
up. But the
Right.
struggle with something means that you're still wrestling with it. You're still, you're in pursuit of it still. So that's something that I would use to describe my walk in my journey. And it just flows over into my relationships, podcasts that I have, Shop Talk Bay of Quinte, being able to have conversations with people. And, it's not like I get preachy on there or anything, but it's, what I believe in my faith, it certainly comes out in the perspectives that are shared on the show.
Because it's part of who you are. It's not
Facts.
something you can just divorce from who you are. That's key. And even this idea of continuously struggling. I love the way that you said it, and looking at it in not a negative way necessarily, because I think the opposite of not struggling is apathy. And I'm wondering, is that something that you like, even just in your work, and now your podcast, is that something that you just try to continue to fight against, and that's why like you add on these new things and looking for different career opportunities? Like, let me get into your head a little bit more on that.
Yeah, well, it's interesting, and I appreciate the question, Raquel. Like a lot of what we do in a marketing space, and I always tell this to our clients, it's like we're not here to we're not here to tell you what's right. We're
Mm-hmm.
here to help you find what's right.
Hmm.
Because it's like it's not every solution is like a cookie cutter. Like your business is completely different as a flower shop than the HVAC business that we're working with on the other end here. Like so I always say like we're here to help you find right. We're not here to tell you what's right. And we just happen to have the intellect, the knowledge, the skill set to help get you there faster than you would be able to get on your own. And that's kind of our approach with just about everything. Like we're teachable as humans. We're always
Hmm.
looking for areas to grow, and you kind of have to in this industry. It's super fast paced moving, and yeah, even as an individual myself, like it's so easy for us to think we know what's right, and then we just kind of adapt that, and
Yeah.
subconsciously what we think is right, if somebody thinks differently, we'll just think like, oh well, they're wrong, and what they're doing is wrong. And
Right.
like somebody might not have they might have strong convictions against not drinking alcohol,
Right.
right? But they'll look at somebody else that drinks alcohol responsibly, and they'll kind of push that uh notion of like, well, alcohol's bad. They'll push it onto that person, even though that person is using alcohol responsibly. So it's
Right.
just something that I'm trying to be more cognizant of today, is like just being aware that even though I might have a certain view on something, doesn't necessarily that it means it's right for somebody else. It just might mean that it's right for me, outside of like the fundamental things that
Right. Right.
the
Right.
Bible
Don't go
that's
murder someone.
it exactly.
I just, the visual that just came to mind is there's this character on the show my mom and I are watching called New Amsterdam. It's a child psychopath.
I'm
And
watching that right now.
okay, I hope I didn't spoil it for you. There's a character. Have you
No,
met
no, go
Julia
ahead.
yet? The
Probably
psychopath.
not, but go ahead. It's okay.
Oh, her name's Julia, and I haven't seen that terrifying of a portrayal of a psychopath since probably Moriarty, because you kind of forget, like people throw around that term like, oh, you're a psychopath, like just throw it around. But when you see the medical display of what an actual psychopath is, it's very interesting, like just the idea of like having to get into their brain and understand how they relate to the world, and how they make their decisions. I don't remember why I got to this point, but I'm gonna come back because there's something you said that just reminded me of, I think maybe it's like the idea of choosing what it is that you believe, and trying to get to the understanding of why people act out the way that they do. That was probably where I was going with the psychopath thought. But just to reel it back a bit, there had been something that you said there about the with marketing, and making decisions, like necessarily maybe like listening more to your audience. It hit home for me because I also work in like communications and marketing, in higher ed. And one of the lessons that's really been coming back to mind is, Raquel, you still have to continue to be in this posture of listening. I think I got a little bit comfortable, especially because I came into my role as a recent grad. I mean, when I first started, I was a student. So I was always comfortable in saying, like, I know what people want. I know what they're interested on social media. And, a quick social media survey shows you that you very well don't know, especially, with newer Gen Z students coming in, and just that posture of listening. I think that's something that I've started to apply more in other aspects of my life. And just curious for you, especially as someone who is, can I say your age? Is that okay?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
Like, you're 27, right?
Yeah.
And um we're still fairly young, I would say. I'm trying to hold on to that. How have you found, like, continuing to be in that posture of listening? Because I know there are folks that work with you who are older than you. Like, what has that kind of dynamic been for you, learning and growing even in your work?
Ooh, man, this is good. This is actually why I love HR.
Yeah.
It's weird. A lot of people don't like HR. They don't like that side of the business. I actually love it, and the reason I love it is because it's humility in action.
Hmm.
Like we, I almost say this, like anybody that has to call themselves humble, you should question that. You know what I mean? So, like,
Red flag.
so it's humility in action. Like, you literally have to put yourself, second, and you have to put the person that is in front of you first, and you have to kind of, you have to listen, and you have to decide, okay, is what they're saying, is that valid, and then you have to decide that if you want to have empathy for that, and you, like, that's a decision. Like empathy for a lot of people is a decision. It's not just a default, like, oh my goodness, I feel bad, you know what I mean? Like,
Hmm.
there's just some struggles we don't relate to.
Hmm.
So for some of us, it's a decision. You have to decide to be empathetic to that person. It's not just
Right.
something that comes naturally. And for me, like, listening, sometimes you have to get the whole story before you can get to a place where it's like, yeah, I'm leaning towards empathetic because I heard you out and I spent the time, and I get where you're coming from now. And I've learned a lot. Like, we have some really, really talented team leaders in our company. I'm really proud to say that. And they have some phenomenal ideas, things that I wouldn't have thought of. They bring it to the table, and we implement it. So I always try to think, I never want to stand in the way of our growth.
Hmm.
And I think sometimes if we, as the owner, if you hold on to too much control, you're never going to go anywhere. I think one of the best decisions I ever made in my company is I made a focus group, and it was a focus group out of each kind of department in our business, and they actually have the power to make decisions about what we do as far as product development, what we do as far as, what project management systems we use, and things like, all of that used to be decisions that people used to come to me for. And it's like,
Right.
you know what, I'm probably not even the best qualified person to make those decisions. So why am I making them? Let's make
Hmm.
a focus group that can come to those conclusions. So it's me having self-awareness of what I'm not good at and leaning on people that are, and being confident to allow them to run with those decisions.
The delegation, that's
Ooh, I
key.
love that word. Love that word.
If you can't see, if
Listen,
you're listening to the podcast, you can't see Josh's face right now, but he's like, yes.
well, it comes down to the question, right? Like, it's like, what type of entrepreneur do you want to be? Do you want to own
Mm.
a job, or do you want to own a company?
Whew.
Like, if you own a company, to me that means you can step out of it for a period of time, and the wheels aren't going to fall off. Somebody told me that, and it really resonated with me, because it's like, yeah, you're right. Because if you own a job, you can't do that.
Right, right, right. But you can even drill that down for people who have teams, like, who might not necessarily, if you're listening to this podcast and you don't have a business, but if you're responsible for a section in your company, like, even thinking about it in that respect, I think is key. Because I know when I first started off, it was very much this, I have to hold all the cards to my chest, and I'm the one who has to make this decision. I have to be there in the thick of it. And now it's like, Raquel, the way to show that you're doing a good job is having, like, your work studies, or your assistants who are able to pick up and do that work for you. It's not, as you said, just doing the job, releasing it.
Oh
So
my goodness. And I'll actually give you a quick example of how that's played out in the
yeah.
most positive way for somebody. My business coach, he's come out of a family business. They're north of 100 million a year in revenue. And the previous owner of the company, his father, had somebody that worked under him, general manager, kind of vice president position. And it basically got to the point where that vice president's job became redundant.
Mm.
Why? Because he did so well at delegating and empowering other people. So then the owner came to him and said, "Hey, you've kind of done some really awesome things here. Pick and choose how often you want to come into the office."
Mm.
And that person basically came into the office once every 4 months for like
Wow.
general meetings, and
Yeah.
that was it.
Yeah. Oh my goodness, the
Didn't
dream.
own the company, but only had to come in 4 times a year and
Right.
still made what he was making because he had done so well at making his job redundant.
Wow. That's success. Success.
Facts. More time. More
Exactly.
time.
Exactly, to put into meaningful things. And honestly, as I'm hearing you, I think there's some value here in tracking back for folks, who are listening and meeting you for the first time. Like, to be someone in this position, like, can you like even go back to like telling us who you are in terms of like your family? Like, did any of your growing up experiences kind of influence the way that you've worked in teams? Like, for me, I know like you're from a family of five kids. Five, yeah, I always
Yep.
mix it up. Five, yeah. And like where you came from, yeah, I'll stop talking, but like how did all this journey bring you to where you are now?
Uh, I mean, grace for sure, and just being open. Like I love one of the things that people I guess should know about me is like I love talking about money. I love talking about paying off debt. I hate debt with all my heart. Got to get rid of it, even if it's a mortgage. I still hate it.
Fair.
And you know what? It was a very real moment of when my wife and I first got together. Like she was kind of reluctant to buy a home. She was like, Josh, it's our first time out on our own. Why don't we rent something for a bit? And I said to her, I was like, me being kind of puffed up, prideful Josh, like, I want to provide for my woman. So it's like, I said, I want to give you my best, and that's not my best. And I literally told her that point blank. And so anyway, we went and got a home, and we lived there for like a year and a half. And what happened was, because I had some like debt that I came into, so I hadn't met Dave Ramsey yet, and I had some credit card debt, school loan, 2 vehicle loans. And I remember sitting down at the table and looking at my expenses with my wife and realizing that our expenses exceeded our income.
Hmm.
So I'm like, whoa. Because like I came, to your point, came from a family where I remember there were Thanksgivings where like my dad didn't know where the next mortgage payment was coming from. Um, had a good job, always was great at what he did in sales, and but he had a family of 7 to take care of, and lots of burdens on my father. And I'm sure he's had a lot of sleepless nights that I do want to shout him out for, because I know he did carry the majority of
Yeah.
that burden by himself growing up. And I just thought, I don't want that for myself. I don't want that for my family. So it's like we got to do something drastic to make those changes.
Hmm.
And YouTube channel, Raquel, found our journey to bliss. For anybody that's interested, go check them out. It's a family of 5 that downsized from their stick build home to a mobile trailer. And that just got me all fired up, and just wanting the simpler things of what life. This is how God works, Raquel. I
Come
bring
on.
this idea to my wife,
Yeah.
and she is already on board with it. She's like, "Oh yeah." She's like, "I was just waiting for you to catch
Oh,
up." And I'm like, "What now?" She was already primed for it, because
right.
she thought the house was too big, and so she was ready to make the move. I didn't even have to convince her. God had already done his work there.
Wow.
And the next day, I see a mobile home come up for sale 5 minutes down the road from where we live, and I know the agent because
Come
he
on.
sold my dad's rental. So I was
Wow.
like, Jason, we need to come see that. He's like, man, this just went up. Come on down. It was a
Yeah.
3-bedroom home. trailer. So we downsized, we moved there, paid off every single penny that we own, every
Come
single
on.
penny.
Wow.
And 4 months later, I get the ask, you ready to take over OSM?
Woof.
I would not have financially been able to do that had I still been in that big 25 square foot home that I was in prior to.
Right.
So it totally God's timing, and then just being open to what the his plan was.
That's incredible. It all started with taking a step. Because I'm always cognizant, like, folks who are listening, everyone's coming from different backgrounds and different places, but like just this idea of, you were open, as you said, and you were looking for solutions, and then you took a step. Like, I think sometimes, a lot of times, I know, at least for myself, like that can be a fear in itself, of like making a decision and then moving into that decision. So, again, thank God for your journey, and thank God for even the fact that your wife Charlotte was already on board. That part cracks me up.
Here's the crazy thing with that, Raquel, is that's where I actually got the concept of bless it or block it.
Say it
And
again. You froze a second.
I have it on bless it or block it. It's a concept that came up through that experience, and all it means for me is that whenever I get a crazy idea, because I get a lot of them, is I just pray about it and I say, Lord, if this is something that you want to happen, bless it, and if it's something you don't want to happen, block it before I even go down the rabbit hole.
Mm,
And then I just move because I'm already feeling something inside. Otherwise, I wouldn't even be praying the prayer.
hmm,
And then I say to God, I'm open to this not being of you, and this is just one of my crazy ideas. And I'm open to this being from you,
yeah,
and that this is something that you birthed into me. So I always just kind of put that veil of protection over any decision we make as a family. And I just say, if it's for us, bless it. If it's not, block it. And then I take the action because I've
right.
given God full permission to stand in the way if it's a crazy idea. And by the way, typically my wife has affirmed for me if it's a crazy idea or not. So that's often been the block. And if she
Yeah.
doesn't stand in the way, then it's my indication to think, okay, maybe this is the blessing.
Right, 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 right. I feel like I should have a hanky at the moment. That's so good. Bless it or block it. Is that like is that a shirt you're selling? Have I missed this?
No,
Or
no, no. It's just personal to me, and I've shared it
okay.
with a couple of people that it's really resonated with them, and I've actually made them shirts as well. But yeah, just something along my personal journey that I keep close. So some people that know me know that story, and when they see the shirt, they're like, oh yeah, that's
They know what's
the
going on.
evidence.
That's so that's so good. And honestly, like, even everything that we've talked about so far has kind of moved me towards, one of the main things I thought of when I was thinking about your name, for the show, and like, talking with you about stories, is this idea of legacy. To me, it appears that you are definitely, in the process of building a legacy. Like, that seems like something that you aspire towards, but that's me. I don't want to throw that on you. What, in your mind, what does legacy mean to you, and what has the importance of it been in your life?
Wow, great question, Raquel. I mean, it comes in a few different forms for me. I mean, first and foremost, like I am now faced with the very, very I almost want to use the word difficult. If it depends on how I choose to look at it that day, but it's definitely a big responsibility of kind of training up your children, in the way that they should go. Never had that responsibility before, so it's certainly that's a piece I think about when I think about legacy. Living my life in a way that is pleasing to the Lord, so that they can see that example. That's first and foremost, because I do want my children to be saved. I do want them to have their
Hey everyone, a bit of a freeze alert here. We had a bit of technical difficulties, and Josh was able to graciously pick up the thread and continue the conversation. So if you notice a little bit of a pause, that's what happened. So enjoy.
So I'll just finish my point about legacy. So the obviously the big one, training up my children so that they have that safe space in place to be able to come to have a relationship with the Father. themselves, and that's the most important one,
Yeah.
and then the second piece to that is creating kind of a safe space and place for them to be able to empower other people.
Mm,
So, as I'm empowering them and as I'm empowering my wife and other people around me, I want that energy to flow through my children as they grow and have that God-given confidence so that they can go and empower other people. My mom had this dream, and hopefully this will help paint the picture. She had this dream when I was a lot younger of me running around a track,
mm,
and she said when I was running around the track, there was a lot of people that were tired, they were giving up, and I would stop to give those people water, but I would
mm.
keep running, and I'd keep running around the track, and I'd stop and I'd help somebody, then I'd keep running. So it was like I had the strength to keep going, and even though some people would stop, like I'd give them water, help them, and then I'd keep going. So that's always stuck with me as like,
Yeah. Yeah.
I know I have strength and capacity in me and energy to pour into other people. And actually, through that is how I've been able to get help. So if
Mm,
I struggle with something, helping somebody else that's struggling with the same thing is actually what's helped me get freedom.
right.
So that's a huge thing to note. So, empowering my kids to be able to empower others, because I think that energy is going to continue to flow through them, but so not only that they help other people, but they get the help that they need. Because at
Yeah.
the end of the day, if I come back to, it's every person for themselves and their faith, I want my kids to have their own solid faith. And then let the result of that be that it outpours to others and other people can get free and get saved as a result.
That dream, wow, that's a powerful thing to be able to point back to. Just that image you immediately painted the picture for me, and the importance of what you're building for your children, especially in terms of their faith and the safe space that they have to really come to knowledge for themselves. And I'll say, like, legacy, I know, has been for me really a thing that I don't think I've ever not thought about, especially just in consideration of, for me, family's such a big thing. Like, whenever I talk to anyone, they're like, "What are you most passionate about?" There's faith, there's family, there's my career, but like my family is so huge, just in my mind, not in terms of like the numbers. And I always think of grandpa, like our grandpa, Rudy,
Mm,
who he left a legacy that I think about, if not weekly, like regularly, where he put all this work in for his kids, obviously, like Gran as well, but he passed away 2012. And just the work that he did, like, the way that he trained his kids, all of them, like, you look at all of the boys, like even the girls, I'm sure to an extent. I just grew up with one of the boys where they have whether it's the carpentry skills, the importance of building your faith, and those moments of family together, music, food, like, half of the things that I remember about learning about my Jamaican heritage, at least, is sitting with him or sitting with my grandmother. Like, these are all things that I think about, and it kind of terrifies me sometimes when I think about the future of wanting to eventually have kids, of just trying to make sure that you pass down as much as you can from those who have come before you. Because I know, we've talked about this on the show a couple of times, of like, the stories that are told to you help to give you a sense of grounding and what can propel you forward. And I wonder if that's something that you probably, I don't know if you've ever been scared about that kind of thing, but do you ever feel this responsibility of passing down, whether it's stories from your family, heritage from your family? There's so many ways we can go with this, but kind of what are your thoughts in terms of that?
yeah, that's super, super important, Raquel. Like, I think passing down stories, not only is it important, but I think it's critical to give context to the next generation, our children, of what it really means to be a follower of Christ, and how imperfect that actually does look. Like, I mean, look no farther than the story of David, and man after God's own heart, but yet did some really kind of offside things along the way. You know what I mean? And like, I know one thing that I'm going to be super honest with my children about is my struggle with pornography. Like, I'm going to put that on Front Street because it's something that I've struggled with since the age of 13. And you know, through transparency and accountability, I was able to get free of it.
Mm,
And you know, praise the Lord for that. But the reality is that it's still, without accountability, without those things in place, like, you know, it would be something that I would still be giving into to this
mm,
day. So I
mm.
struggle with it. I don't give into it, but it's super important to note, because I think the stats, like every other guy, and not just in the world, like in the church, every other dude has struggled with it at
Yeah.
some point in
And
time.
women.
And women,
Yeah.
absolutely. So, you know, real things like that I want to share with my children. Like,
Mm,
I didn't know kind of about, you know, some of my dad's downfalls until like adulthood, and us
mhm.
having some kind of real conversations about things I didn't know about. And I thought, like, wow, dad, like, we're more alike than I even thought, because I'm like, here I
Mm,
was struggling with certain things, and I had no idea that my father had, you know, similar struggles. So I think as parents, and even as people that have younger people around us, I think we need to be vulnerable enough to share those things, because those are the meat and potatoes that really kind of help to shape real faith, not kind of like works gets you into heaven faith, like the
right.
actual, like, this is the reality of what it is to be a Christian. You're not going to not struggle with certain things just because you're saved. It actually makes it harder, and but here's the way out, here's the
Right.
hope piece. So
Right.
that's kind of, you know, a big thing I do want to mention when it comes to storytelling. Don't just share the good things, don't just share
Mm,
the things that, you know, motivate, but share kind of the real struggles, share the not so nice pretty things that, you
mm.
know, make people want to pursue faith. Share the bad stuff, share the stuff that puts you in a position where you got to be held to enough account, because I think that's really what will make the difference.
Josh, thank you for even sharing that. I know that's so vulnerable and something personal for you. So thank you for sharing that with our audience, and being cognizant also as well, knowing that there's different people, different faiths listening to this show. I think even for you, you know, who are listening, that this is a lesson that I think is applicable across the board. This idea of not just sharing the pretty stories. I feel like you really hit that on the head of like you are empowered in telling the truth. And it's not always pretty and there's real struggle and there's real, you know, shame and vulnerability that people have worked through, and you even having that heart to heart with your dad. I think that like that is so powerful. I don't think that, you know, we're starting to see more of these conversations happening, I think. At least, you know, this whole talk about authenticity, and I make that face just because I feel like authenticity is just being thrown around all the time. But when you are real with your stories and where you've come from, you know, you bring freedom, for someone to be able to see, hey, I'm not alone in this fight. You know, you speak specifically about your journey with freedom from pornography. You know, we've had people like Kirk Franklin. I remember when he came out with that about, I don't want to put a year to this, I don't remember. It was a while ago. It was like
Yeah,
back on
yeah.
Oprah, and that was a huge moment because people were like, "You're in the church," and la 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 la. Like, yes, I'm still human, sis. Like, what are you doing? So this
Thanks.
even just speaking the truth, that's so powerful. So thank you for speaking on that. And you know, you're already so many steps ahead, like in just in what you're doing, the way you've grounded yourself and what you're doing for your boys. So I want to commend you for that and say I love you, because that's amazing. I want to say thank you for everything that you've spoken to today. it's been a real conversation. And I know we've covered a lot of ground. So just before I get into some rapid fire questions, is there any kind of last word that you would have for our listeners today, or anything that I didn't ask you that you wanted to speak to?
I think I would just add to this, Raquel, and just say that like there's when you're walking through life, and whether it's professionally or personally or whatever, I think these conversations are great to have,
Hmm.
period. So maybe just an encouragement to people that are listening, like if you ever get the chance to share, like don't shy away from that, because that's could be something that really unlocks kind of a maybe a generational curse
Right.
or barrier, or you
Right.
know what I mean, like if I had known some years ago that like just being vulnerable and talking about what I was struggling with could be the thing that actually freed me,
Hmm.
I think I would have been free a lot sooner than I
Right.
was. So, I say that to say that sharing is a good thing, and do it with people that are on this, they're on the path that you're wanting to
Right.
go on.
Right.
There's certainly, you need to have boundaries with who you share with, and that, but make sure it's people that are on the same page and going in the same direction that you are, and open up, and I think you'll be amazed to see how much you grow from it.
Absolutely. And thank you for even putting that in there. I've heard this a couple of times from some workshops now, of like being discerning about who you are sharing your journey with. You're every not every part of your journey is for everybody. You are not some McDonald's buffet that people can just come through and like, I want this, I want this, I want this. Because it's protecting yourself, your heart, but also just being aware of where you're going as a person. So thank you. Thank you for speaking to that. And thank you for today. It's been good. I have a segment that I love doing. It's called Rapid Fire Questions. It's not like that life altering. I have like three questions for you, and I'm going to say them to you, and you have to say the first thing that comes to your mind. If you do want to have a little bit of a elaborated point on it, feel free. But we're going to do some really quick questions, and then we'll let people learn about where to find you. Are
This
you
is
ready?
exciting. This is exciting because I tried this with one of my last guests, and it went terribly wrong. So I'm so I'm
Okay,
excited.
we'll see how this goes. We'll see how this one goes. Okay, what's your favorite social media platform?
Oh, um, can I put two?
Yes.
Okay, okay. Instagram.
Instagram. Really? Not TikTok?
Well, that's my second
That
favorite.
was your second? Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. Actually, okay, I'm gonna mess this up already. Why Instagram?
Um, Instagram, because I guess just for us, it's where I feel community the most.
Okay.
Like I see the most. I actually see the most positivity
Hmm.
on Instagram, TikTok, LinkedIn. That's where I see
Yes.
the most
Yes.
positivity, period,
Yeah.
on social. And Instagram for us is, it's just been because we're creative and it's a creative space. I mean that, and you can say the same thing for TikTok. It's just been kind of I've most of the guests for my podcast I've met on Instagram, didn't know them before. So that community aspect is probably why I selfishly like it the most,
Yeah.
just for us.
Okay, that makes sense. Thank you. Name one of your favorite content creators or storytellers online?
Oh man, there's a gentleman by the name of Anthony O'Neill,
Ooh, write that down.
with the Dave Ramsey family. Uh, Real great guy. I believe he's single, and but no, really great guy. Has a lot of knowledge on financial literacy. He's a Christian, and I really like a lot of the things that he has to say.
Beautiful. Thank you. What is your go-to podcast?
Well, Anthony O'Neill's one of them. Dave Ramsey's definitely another. I definitely like me some Gary Vee. Those
Okay.
are probably my top three.
Perfect. What is one book on your to read list?
Oh man, the Bible.
You can't do that. That's cheating. That's like every book. You need
Okay.
another one.
Okay. Well, there's a oh man, I don't have it here, but it's a book that kind of helps you understand the Bible better.
Okay.
So that's probably one that I'm trying to get through. I'm sorry, I don't know the name of it right offhand, but yeah, I'm not a big I mostly consume content through like video audio, so
Fair.
that's kind of why I have to default to that answer because
Yeah.
it's kind of true.
I was gonna say, like, because you asked a Christian, "What's your favorite book?" The Bible. Girl, no, that's cheating. That's default.
Because I don't like any other book. I
Yeah,
don't
no
read.
other book. There's not another book on the planet. Okay, final question for today. Where's your favorite place to consume stories? Do you prefer movies or TV shows?
Mm, definitely TV shows. I like feeling like I'm along for the journey. It's not
Mm,
like a one-time gig. It's like, I'll binge seasons for like an entire like 2, 3 months. And all the way to the end.
yeah.
And so I definitely TV shows for sure.
Okay, well, I'm looking forward to your notes as you binge New Amsterdam. That will be interesting. Thank you, Josh, again. Where can our listeners find you if they want to keep up to date with your journey with OSM? Where can they find you online?
All right, got a couple of things going on. So if you like to network, there's a networking platform that we use. If you go to Instagram, Network BOQ, you'll find us. We meet bi-weekly on Mondays, 8 a.m. And we just do something called roundtable chat. So it's a really great place for entrepreneurs to share, and not just entrepreneurs, professionals, whatever you're into in the professional space. Raquel, if you're available on a Monday morning at 8 a.m. Would love to have you on as a special guest. That I think that
Love
would be
that.
awesome. I also have a podcast myself called Talk Quinte. You can find us on Instagram as well, and we're sharing just informal conversations between entrepreneurs, meaningful ones that much like what we're doing right now. So kudos to you. This has been a great show. And lastly, you can find us at my OSM team on Instagram, and then Linktree will take you to our website and things like that. If you're interested in any digital products or you want to, e-commerce or photography, anything like that, you can check this out as well.
Beautiful. That was amazing. Josh, thank you so much. Thank you for your time. I know it's busy and I know there's sun outside, so I am taking your valuable sun time. I will catch up with you online. Thanks again for being on Talking Stories.
Raquel, it's been an absolute pleasure. Love, love, love what you're doing here. God bless you in this. It's really, really making a difference, and I can just see the joy that you get out of it. And it's been a joy for me to be here today. So kudos to you. Love what you're doing. Love the energy, and it's needed. Keep going.
Thank you so much, cuz. Love you. I'll talk to you.
Love you too.
And that's a wrap on this conversation with Joshua Edwards. I really hope you enjoyed this conversation. I know I did. It was really interesting and valuable just to hear about Josh's life and his perspectives on the world. I'm really looking forward to seeing the force for good that he is in his community and around the people that he loves and the people that he interacts with. I'm looking forward to season 3 of Talking Stories. Make sure you stay tuned, subscribe. Thank you for joining. Follow us on Twitter. We're on social media, so Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, just to keep up to date. We share some quotes from the episode that hopefully inspire you and motivate you throughout your week. So thanks again for listening. Keep living your real, keep living your truth. I will see you back here, and be safe.